Behind the golden gates of Buckingham Palace, where tourists gather daily to catch a glimpse of royal life, there exists a world that few outsiders ever witness. It is a realm governed by centuries-old traditions, whispered conversations in marble corridors, and the quiet observations of those who serve the crown with unwavering loyalty. As 2026 unfolds, the British royal family stands at a crossroads unlike any other in modern history. King Charles III, now settled into his reign after waiting 7 decades to wear the crown, faces challenges that would test even the most experienced monarch. Prince William prepares for his inevitable ascension while balancing the weight of future kingship with his role as a devoted father. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, continues to redefine what it means to be a modern royal consort, all while the world watches her every move. And young Prince George, barely a teenager, unknowingly carries the hopes and expectations of a nation on his shoulders. But this story is not told through the lens of royal correspondence or palace press releases. Instead, it emerges from the observations of those who know the royals best, the men and women who have dedicated their lives to serving the crown from within the palace walls. These are the butlers, valets, housekeepers, and personal attendants who witness history unfold in private moments, who see beyond the carefully crafted public image to the real people beneath the titles. Their perspective offers something unprecedented, an authentic glimpse into the daily realities, private struggles, and genuine triumphs of Britain's most famous family. Through their eyes, we discover not just the challenges facing the monarchy in 2026, but the human stories that rarely make headlines, the moments of doubt, the bursts of laughter, the family dynamics that shape decisions affecting millions, and the quiet acts of courage that define true leadership. This is their story, told with the respect and discretion that has made them trusted confidants to the crown, yet with the honesty that only comes from witnessing truth firsthand. As the royal family navigates an increasingly complex world, those who serve them offer insights that no outsider could provide, insights into what really happens when the cameras stop rolling and the palace doors close for the night. The morning mist clung to the windows of Buckingham Palace as James Richardson adjusted his white gloves one final time before entering the king's private study. As head butler to His Majesty King Charles III, James had served the royal household for nearly 3 decades, but nothing had quite prepared him for the transformation he witnessed after the coronation. The weight of the crown, it seemed, was more than ceremonial. Charles sat behind his mahogany desk, surrounded by red dispatch boxes that contained the daily business of governing a constitutional monarchy. The early morning light caught the silver in his hair, making him appear older than his years, yet there was a determined set to his shoulders that James had come to recognize. The king had arrived at his office before dawn again, as had become his habit since taking the throne. "Your Majesty, your morning tea," James announced softly, placing the delicate china cup on its saucer with practiced precision. Charles looked up from the documents before him, offering a tired but genuine smile that reminded James of the man he had served as Prince of Wales for so many years. The transition from heir to sovereign had not been easy. James remembered the uncertainty in those first weeks after Queen Elizabeth II passing, when Charles struggled to find his footing as monarch while grieving his mother. The palace staff had watched with quiet concern as their new king grappled with the enormity of his role, often working until the small hours of the morning, trying to master every detail of his constitutional duties. "James, tell me honestly," Charles said, setting down his fountain pen, "how do you think the household is adapting to the changes?" It was typical of the king to seek the counsel of those around him, a quality that endeared him to the staff but sometimes frustrated his private secretaries who preferred more decisive leadership. James considered his words carefully. The royal household had indeed undergone significant changes since Charles's accession. The king's vision for a more streamlined monarchy had meant difficult decisions about staffing and protocol. Some long-serving members had been reassigned or had taken early retirement, while others had embraced the new direction with enthusiasm. "The staff appreciate your accessibility, Your Majesty," James replied diplomatically. "There's a sense that you truly value our perspective." This was true. Unlike some previous monarchs who maintained rigid distance from their household staff, Charles often stopped to chat with gardeners, asked after the health of cleaning staff's families, and remembered personal details that showed genuine interest in their lives. The king's environmental consciousness had also transformed daily palace operations. Solar panels now adorned previously forbidden rooftops, organic gardens supplied the royal kitchens, and staff had been trained in sustainable practices that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier. Charles took personal pride in these innovations, often giving impromptu tours to visiting dignitaries who seemed surprised by the monarch's passionate knowledge of renewable energy systems. But James also observed the toll that kingship was taking. The man who had once been an eager advocate for various causes now had to maintain careful political neutrality. Meetings that had once energized the then Prince of Wales now required diplomatic restraint that clearly frustrated him. The constitutional limitations of his role weighed heavily on someone who had spent decades as an active campaigner for environmental and social causes. The relationship between King Charles and his eldest son had evolved dramatically since the coronation. Prince William, now heir apparent, visited the palace with increasing frequency, participating in what palace insiders called the education of a future king. James often observed their conversations during these visits, noting the mixture of respect, affection, and occasional tension that characterized their interactions. William brought a different energy to the palace halls. Younger and more technologically savvy than his father, he often questioned traditional protocols and suggested modernizations that sometimes made the king uncomfortable. James recalled one particularly animated discussion about social media strategy, where William advocated for more direct communication with the public while Charles preferred the measured, traditional approach that had served the monarchy for generations. During one such visit, James had been serving afternoon tea when he overheard William expressing frustration about the pace of change within the royal household. "Father, we need to move faster," William had said, his voice carrying the urgency of someone who understood the challenges facing the monarchy in an increasingly Republican world. "Public opinion won't wait for us to catch up." Charles's response revealed the delicate balance he tried to maintain between progress and tradition. "My dear boy, this institution has survived for over 1,000 years by understanding that lasting change requires patience and wisdom. We must modernize, yes, but not at the expense of everything that makes the monarchy meaningful." These conversations often ended with both men deep in thought, each understanding the other's perspective but struggling to find common ground. James noticed that after such discussions, Charles would often retreat to his private quarters earlier than usual, while William would spend time walking the palace gardens, hands clasped behind his back in a gesture that reminded everyone of his grandfather, Prince Philip. The king's daily routine had become a carefully choreographed balance between constitutional duties and personal interests. Mornings began with briefings from his private secretary, followed by meetings with government officials, charity representatives, or foreign dignitaries. Afternoons often involved travel within the United Kingdom, as Charles was determined to visit every corner of his realm during his reign. James had accompanied the king on several of these regional visits and witnessed firsthand the genuine connection Charles felt with ordinary citizens. Unlike the formal meet-and-greets that characterized many royal visits, Charles often engaged in lengthy conversations with schoolchildren, farmers, business owners, and community leaders. These interactions seemed to energize him in a way that palace meetings never did. One particularly memorable visit to a struggling industrial town in northern England had demonstrated both Charles's compassion and his frustration with the limitations of his role. After touring a food bank and speaking with families facing economic hardship, the king had returned to his car visibly moved. "James," he had said quietly during the drive back to London, "there must be more we can do. Surely being king means having the power to help these people directly." It was moments like these that revealed the internal conflict Charles faced daily. His training as heir had emphasized duty, tradition, and constitutional propriety, but his instincts as a man pushed him toward more active involvement in addressing social problems. The tension between these impulses was evident to anyone who spent time with him regularly. The king's relationship with Catherine, the Princess of Wales, had strengthened considerably since his accession. James often observed their interactions during family gatherings and noted the mutual respect and affection that had developed between them. Catherine's grace under pressure and natural ability to connect with people of all backgrounds had earned Charles's admiration and gratitude. During state dinners and official receptions, James watched Catherine work alongside Charles with seamless coordination. She seemed to understand instinctively when the king needed support in conversations with difficult guests or when protocol required her to step forward and take the lead. Their partnership represented a modern interpretation of royal teamwork that served both the monarchy and the family well. The princess had also become an invaluable advisor on matters relating to young families and children's issues. Charles, whose own children were now adults, relied on Catherine's insights when developing policies or choosing patronages related to early childhood development, education, and family welfare. Their regular private meetings had become an essential part of the king's weekly schedule. Catherine's influence extended beyond policy matters. James noticed that her presence at family gatherings had a calming effect on everyone, including Charles. Her ability to find humor in difficult situations and maintain perspective during challenging times had made her something of a stabilizing force within the royal family. Even during tense discussions about royal protocols or family disputes, Catherine could often diffuse tension with well-timed observations or gentle humor. The evening routine at the palace reflected Charles's desire to maintain some semblance of normal family life despite the extraordinary circumstances of his position. When possible, he insisted on private family dinners without formal protocol, where conversation could flow naturally and even controversial topics could be discussed openly. James had served many of these intimate family meals and was struck by the genuine affection evident between family members, despite their public challenges. Charles clearly cherished these moments of normalcy and often lingered at the dinner table long after the meal had ended, reluctant to return to the formal duties waiting in his study. The king's personal interests remained a source of joy and renewal despite the pressures of his role. His painting, gardening, and writing provided escapes from the constant demands of monarchy. James had arranged Charles's schedule to protect these pursuits whenever possible, understanding their importance to the king's mental and emotional well-being. The private study where Charles pursued his artistic interests had become a sanctuary within the palace. Watercolor supplies, sketchbooks, and reference materials created a controlled chaos that contrasted sharply with the formal order maintained in other royal apartments. James took special care in maintaining this space, knowing that it represented one of the few areas where Charles could express himself without consideration for protocol or public perception. As 2026 progressed, the challenges facing the monarchy showed no signs of diminishing. Economic pressures, political changes, and evolving public attitudes toward traditional institutions created a complex environment that required careful navigation. Charles approached these challenges with characteristic thoughtfulness, but James could see the strain in his posture and expressions during particularly difficult days. The king's correspondence had increased dramatically since his accession, with requests for royal patronage, invitations to events, and political briefings creating an endless stream of decisions requiring his attention. James often found Charles working through these documents late into the evening, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he carefully considered each request. Despite these pressures, Charles maintained his sense of humor and personal warmth. James appreciated the king's habit of asking about staff members' families and remembering personal details from previous conversations. These small gestures of humanity amid the grandeur of royal life created a working environment that felt more like an extended family than a formal institution. The evolution of Charles from Prince of Wales to king had been remarkable to witness from James's unique vantage point. The man who had sometimes appeared uncertain or overly eager in his previous role had found his authority and confidence as monarch. While challenges remained, James felt optimistic about the king's ability to lead the monarchy through whatever difficulties lay ahead. As he prepared to leave the king's study that evening, James reflected on the privilege of serving during this historic transition. The monarchy was indeed changing, but, under Charles's leadership, it seemed to be adapting while maintaining the dignity and purpose that had sustained it through centuries of social and political upheaval. Margaret Whitfield had been Prince William's valet for 8 years, but she had never witnessed the intensity she observed in him during the early months of 2026. As the heir to the throne watched his father settle into kingship, William's own preparation for eventual succession had taken on an urgency that affected everyone around him. The palace corridors buzzed with a different energy when the Prince of Wales was in residence. The morning routine had changed significantly since King Charles's accession. William now arrived at the palace before 7 each morning, often staying until well past dinner time. Margaret observed him during these long days, noting the careful balance he maintained between supporting his father's reign and preparing for his own future responsibilities. The transformation from Duke of Cambridge to heir apparent had brought new pressures that were evident in every aspect of his daily life. "Ma'am, His Royal Highness requests his briefing files for the Commonwealth meeting," William's private secretary announced as Margaret prepared the prince's formal uniform for an evening reception. The volume of briefing materials had tripled since William's elevation to heir apparent, covering everything from constitutional law to international relations, economic policy to military strategy. William approached these studies with characteristic thoroughness. Margaret often found him in his private office long after midnight, surrounded by papers and books, his laptop open to video conferences with experts from around the world. The man who had once balanced royal duties with military service and family time now faced the reality that preparation for kingship required almost total dedication. The relationship between William and his father had evolved into something resembling a formal apprenticeship overlaid with genuine familial affection. Margaret witnessed their daily meetings, which had become essential to both men's routines. These sessions covered immediate royal business but increasingly focused on William's education in the subtle arts of constitutional monarchy. During one particularly lengthy meeting, Margaret had been arranging flowers in an adjacent room when she overheard Charles explaining the delicate balance required in dealing with government ministers. "You must remember, William, that our influence comes not from opposition but from gentle guidance. A raised eyebrow can be more powerful than a strong word, but both must be used sparingly and with great consideration." William's questions revealed his analytical approach to royal duties. Unlike his father, who had developed his understanding of monarchy through decades of gradual involvement, William was absorbing complex constitutional principles in compressed timeframes. Margaret noticed that he often took detailed notes during these conversations, creating what appeared to be a comprehensive manual for future reference. The prince's relationship with technology continued to set him apart from previous generations of royals. His office resembled a modern command center more than a traditional royal study, with multiple screens displaying everything from social media analytics to real-time polling data. William insisted on understanding how public opinion was formed and influenced in the digital age, believing that the monarchy's survival depended on adapting to contemporary communication methods. Margaret observed William during his regular video calls with younger members of the Commonwealth realms. These informal conversations with future leaders from around the world demonstrated his commitment to maintaining the relationships that would be crucial to his eventual role as head of the Commonwealth. His natural ease with technology and generational perspectives often made these discussions more productive than traditional diplomatic exchanges. The Princess of Wales played an increasingly important role in William's preparation for kingship. Margaret witnessed their private strategy sessions, where Catherine offered insights that complemented William's analytical approach with emotional intelligence and practical wisdom. Their partnership had evolved beyond traditional royal marriage into a true working relationship focused on their shared future responsibilities. Catherine's influence was particularly evident in William's approach to social issues. Where he might once have focused primarily on constitutional and political aspects of royal duties, he now demonstrated greater awareness of the human impact of royal decisions. Margaret noticed that Catherine often provided the perspective that helped William connect abstract policy discussions to real-world consequences for ordinary citizens. Their children's upbringing had become a carefully managed balance between normal childhood experiences and preparation for royal life. Margaret observed William and Catherine's deliberate efforts to shield Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis from excessive public attention while gradually introducing them to their future roles. Family dinners often included age-appropriate discussions about duty, service, and the responsibilities that came with privilege. William's protective instincts regarding his children were evident to all palace staff. He insisted on personally reviewing every public appearance and media opportunity involving the children, often rejecting requests that he felt would place them under unnecessary scrutiny. Margaret noticed that he was particularly sensitive about Prince George's exposure to public life, understanding that his eldest son faced the unique burden of being born heir to the heir. The prince's daily schedule reflected his determination to master every aspect of royal duties before his eventual accession. Mornings began with constitutional briefings, followed by meetings with government officials, charity representatives, or international visitors. Afternoons often involved public engagements designed to give him exposure to different aspects of British life and Commonwealth affairs. Margaret accompanied William on many of these public appearances and was struck by his natural ability to connect with people from all backgrounds. Unlike the formal interactions that characterized many royal visits, William seemed genuinely interested in learning from the people he met. His questions went beyond polite small talk to substantive inquiries about their lives, work, and challenges. One particularly memorable visit to a renewable energy facility demonstrated William's growing confidence in technical discussions. Margaret watched as he engaged with engineers and scientists, asking detailed questions about technology that would shape Britain's environmental future. His preparation for these visits was meticulous, often involving briefings with experts and extensive background reading. The prince's military experience continued to influence his approach to royal duties. Margaret noticed that he applied strategic thinking and operational planning to royal engagements in ways that distinguished him from previous generations. His analysis of public events often included considerations of security, logistics, and measurable outcomes that reflected his military training. International relations occupied an increasingly significant portion of William's time. Margaret observed his preparation for meetings with foreign dignitaries, noting his careful study of cultural protocols and political sensitivities. His generation's global perspective and language skills served him well in these encounters, where personal relationships often proved as important as formal diplomacy. The Commonwealth remained a particular focus of William's attention. Margaret witnessed his passionate advocacy for strengthening ties with member nations, especially those led by younger leaders who shared his contemporary outlook. His vision for the Commonwealth emphasized mutual benefit and shared values rather than traditional hierarchical relationships. William's approach to charity work reflected both continuity with royal tradition and innovation for modern times. Rather than simply lending his name to worthy causes, he insisted on understanding their operations and measuring their effectiveness. Margaret observed his regular meetings with charity executives, where he asked probing questions about financial management, program outcomes, and long-term sustainability. The prince's environmental advocacy had intensified since his elevation to heir apparent. Margaret noticed that sustainability considerations now influenced every aspect of his royal activities, from transportation choices to event planning. His commitment to environmental causes sometimes created tension with traditional royal protocols, but he remained determined to use his platform for positive change. Mental health advocacy continued to occupy a special place in William's priorities. Margaret witnessed his private meetings with healthcare professionals and researchers, where he demonstrated deep knowledge of psychological and psychiatric issues affecting young people. His willingness to speak openly about mental health challenges had helped normalize these discussions within royal circles and beyond. The relationship between William and his brother Harry remained a source of private concern, though palace staff were trained to maintain strict discretion about family matters. Margaret observed William's careful navigation of questions about family relationships, noting his commitment to protecting both his brother's privacy and the institution of monarchy. Public expectations of William had evolved significantly since his father became king. Margaret noticed increased media attention focused on his every public appearance, with commentators analyzing his words and actions for clues about his future reign. The prince handled this scrutiny with characteristic composure, but the pressure was evident to those who worked closely with him. The modernization of royal protocols occupied considerable attention in William's daily routine. Margaret witnessed his consultations with constitutional experts and public relations specialists as he sought to adapt traditional practices for contemporary relevance. His changes were typically gradual and well-considered, but they represented meaningful evolution in royal practice. William's relationship with the media had matured into a more strategic approach than his earlier years. Margaret observed his careful cultivation of relationships with reliable journalists while maintaining appropriate distance from tabloid speculation. His media strategy emphasized transparency within appropriate bounds while protecting family privacy. The prince's preparation for eventual kingship included extensive travel throughout the United Kingdom and Commonwealth realms. Margaret accompanied him on many of these trips, noting his systematic approach to understanding different regions and their particular challenges. His itineraries often included meetings with local leaders, business representatives, and community groups designed to build comprehensive understanding of diverse populations. Technology continued to play an important role in William's royal duties. Margaret observed his use of video conferencing to maintain regular contact with Commonwealth leaders, his employment of social media analytics to understand public opinion, and his advocacy for digital innovation in government and charitable activities. His comfort with technology distinguished him from previous generations of royals and enabled new approaches to traditional duties. The Princess of Wales complemented William's analytical approach with intuitive understanding of public sentiment and social dynamics. Margaret witnessed their collaborative planning for public events, where Catherine's insights often provided crucial perspective on how royal activities would be received by different audiences. Their partnership represented a modern interpretation of royal teamwork that enhanced both their individual effectiveness and their joint impact. As evening fell over the palace, Margaret prepared William's formal attire for another state dinner. The prince emerged from his study looking tired but determined, carrying himself with the quiet confidence that had developed since his elevation to heir apparent. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, but Margaret felt confident that he was rising to meet the extraordinary demands of his position. The transformation she had witnessed in William over the past months convinced her that the monarchy would be in capable hands when the time came for his eventual succession. His combination of traditional values and contemporary understanding, supported by Catherine's wisdom and their shared commitment to service, suggested that the institution would continue to evolve and thrive under their future leadership. Eleanor Hayes had served as lady-in-waiting to Catherine, Princess of Wales, for 5 years, but 2026 had brought changes that transformed both their professional relationship and her understanding of modern royal life. As Catherine adapted to her elevated role following King Charles's accession, Eleanor witnessed firsthand the evolution of a woman who had already captured public imagination into a figure of genuine influence and remarkable capability. The morning began as it always did, with Catherine reviewing her daily schedule while enjoying a quiet breakfast with her children before they departed for school. Eleanor observed these precious family moments from a respectful distance, noting how Catherine managed to maintain normalcy for Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis despite the increased pressures of her position as wife to the heir apparent. Catherine's transformation since becoming Princess of Wales had been subtle but significant. The confidence that had always characterized her public appearances had deepened into something approaching regal authority, while her natural warmth and accessibility remained unchanged. Eleanor noticed that people responded differently to Catherine now, with a mixture of respect and affection that suggested genuine admiration rather than mere protocol. "Eleanor, I'd like to review the children's schedule for next month before our meeting with the education secretary," Catherine said, her voice carrying the organized efficiency that had become her trademark. The princess had developed remarkable skill in managing multiple complex schedules simultaneously while ensuring that her family's needs remained the priority. The integration of family life with royal duties required constant coordination and careful planning. Eleanor witnessed Catherine's daily negotiations between her responsibilities as a mother and her obligations as a senior member of the royal family. These decisions often involved choosing between equally important commitments, but Catherine approached such choices with clarity and confidence that impressed all who worked with her. Catherine's relationship with her children had become a model for modern royal parenting. Eleanor observed her patient explanations when duty required her to miss school events or family time, her creative solutions for including the children in appropriate royal activities, and her unwavering protection of their privacy and normal childhood experiences. The children clearly understood their mother's importance while feeling secure in her love and attention. Prince George's position as future heir to the heir created particular challenges that Catherine navigated with remarkable sensitivity. Eleanor witnessed her careful conversations with her eldest son about his future responsibilities, always emphasizing service and duty while ensuring he understood the choices available to him. Catherine's approach emphasized character development and education over protocol training, believing that a strong foundation would serve him better than premature exposure to royal pressures. The princess's public engagements had evolved to reflect her growing confidence and expertise in areas she had chosen as personal priorities. Mental health advocacy, early childhood development, and family welfare remained central to her work, but Eleanor noticed that Catherine now approached these subjects with deeper knowledge and greater authority. Her questions during briefings revealed sophisticated understanding of complex social and psychological issues. Eleanor accompanied Catherine to a groundbreaking ceremony for a new children's mental health facility and was struck by the princess's substantive conversations with healthcare professionals. Rather than simply cutting ribbons and making polite remarks, Catherine engaged in detailed discussions about treatment protocols, funding challenges, and outcome measurements. Her preparation for such events had become increasingly thorough and professional. The princess's relationship with charitable organizations reflected her evolution from patron to partner. Eleanor observed Catherine's insistence on understanding the practical operations of her chosen charities, her regular review of their financial performance, and her active participation in strategic planning. She had moved beyond traditional royal charity work to become genuinely involved in solving problems and achieving measurable results. Photography remained Catherine's personal passion and had become an unexpected asset to her royal role. Eleanor witnessed her use of this skill to document royal family life in ways that satisfied public curiosity while maintaining appropriate privacy. Her photographs of the children and family events had become treasured public documents while demonstrating her artistic talent and personal perspective. The technical aspects of Catherine's photography had improved dramatically through private lessons and dedicated practice. Eleanor often found her experimenting with different equipment and techniques, always seeking to capture authentic moments rather than posed formality. Her photographs revealed aspects of royal life that traditional media coverage missed, showing the human moments that made the family relatable to ordinary citizens. Catherine's working relationship with William had evolved into a true partnership that enhanced both their individual effectiveness and their joint impact. Eleanor witnessed their regular strategy sessions where they coordinated their public activities, shared insights about various engagements, and planned their family's future with careful attention to both personal and institutional needs. The princess's influence on William's approach to royal duties was evident in their collaborative planning and decision-making. Eleanor noticed that Catherine often provided the emotional intelligence and practical wisdom that complemented William's analytical approach. Her insights about public sentiment and social dynamics frequently shaped their joint initiatives and public appearances. International relations had become an increasingly important aspect of Catherine's royal role. Eleanor observed her preparation for meetings with foreign dignitaries, noting her careful study of cultural protocols and political sensitivities. Her natural grace and intercultural communication skills made her particularly effective in diplomatic contexts where personal relationships often proved as important as formal negotiations. The princess's state visit preparations revealed her meticulous attention to detail and cultural sensitivity. Eleanor witnessed her consultations with experts on everything from appropriate gifts to conversation topics, her practice of key phrases in foreign languages, and her research into the personal interests of visiting dignitaries. These efforts consistently resulted in successful visits that strengthened international relationships. Catherine's approach to fashion had matured into a sophisticated understanding of clothing as diplomatic communication. Eleanor observed her careful selection of outfits that honored host cultures during international visits, supported British designers and manufacturers, and sent appropriate messages about accessibility and relatability. Her fashion choices had become a form of soft diplomacy that enhanced Britain's cultural influence. The economic impact of Catherine's fashion choices had not gone unnoticed by palace advisors. Eleanor witnessed discussions about the Catherine effect on British fashion and retail industries, where her clothing selections could dramatically increase sales for chosen brands and designers. The princess approached these decisions with awareness of her influence while maintaining her personal style and authenticity. Mental health advocacy remained closest to Catherine's heart, and Eleanor observed her growing expertise in this complex field. The princess's conversations with mental health professionals revealed sophisticated understanding of psychological principles, treatment methodologies, and prevention strategies. Her advocacy had evolved from raising awareness to promoting specific policy changes and funding initiatives. The princess's work with children and families affected by mental health challenges demonstrated her ability to connect with people during their most vulnerable moments. Eleanor witnessed Catherine's patient listening during hospital visits, her thoughtful questions that showed genuine interest, and her follow-up communications that maintained relationships beyond formal encounters. These personal connections had become a source of strength and motivation for her continued advocacy. Early childhood development had emerged as another area where Catherine's influence was producing measurable results. Eleanor observed her collaboration with researchers and educators to promote evidence-based approaches to child development and family support. Her foundation's initiatives had begun to influence government policy and social services in ways that would benefit thousands of families. The princess's commitment to research and evidence-based advocacy distinguished her from traditional royal patronage approaches. Eleanor witnessed her regular meetings with academics and researchers, her careful review of scientific studies and program evaluations, and her insistence on measuring the effectiveness of initiatives she supported. This analytical approach had enhanced her credibility and increased her influence on policy discussions. Catherine's relationship with the media had evolved into a more strategic and controlled approach than her earlier years as a royal. Eleanor observed her careful cultivation of relationships with reliable journalists while maintaining appropriate distance from tabloid speculation. Her media strategy emphasized authenticity and accessibility while protecting family privacy and maintaining royal dignity. The princess's use of social media reflected her understanding of contemporary communication while respecting royal protocols. Eleanor witnessed her careful review of content before publication, her consideration of potential interpretations and reactions, and her coordination with palace communications teams. Her social media presence had become an effective tool for promoting her causes while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Public expectations of Catherine had continued to evolve as she settled into her role as Princess of Wales. Eleanor noticed increased media attention focused on her every public appearance, with commentators analyzing her words and actions for clues about her values and priorities. The princess handled this scrutiny with characteristic grace while remaining true to her authentic personality and values. The comparison with previous princesses of Wales remained a constant undercurrent in media coverage, but Eleanor observed that Catherine had successfully established her own identity and approach to the role. Rather than attempting to emulate her predecessors, she had developed a contemporary interpretation of royal duty that reflected her generation's values and perspectives. Catherine's influence within the royal family extended beyond her immediate household to relationships with extended family members and palace staff. Eleanor witnessed her role as a calming presence during family discussions, her ability to find common ground during disagreements, and her talent for maintaining perspective during challenging situations. Her emotional intelligence had made her a valuable advisor and mediator within the family structure. The princess's relationship with King Charles had strengthened considerably since his accession to the throne. Eleanor observed their regular private meetings where Catherine provided insights about public sentiment and social trends that helped inform the king's decisions. Her perspectives on youth culture, family dynamics, and contemporary challenges had become valuable resources for royal planning and policy development. Evening routines at Kensington Palace reflected Catherine's commitment to maintaining normal family life despite extraordinary circumstances. Eleanor witnessed her dedication to family dinners without formal protocol, bedtime stories for the children, and homework supervision that emphasized education over privilege. These moments of domesticity provided the grounding that enabled her effectiveness in more formal royal contexts. The princess's personal interests and hobbies had evolved to support rather than compete with her royal duties. Eleanor observed how her love of sports had informed her patronage of athletic organizations, her interest in art had enhanced her understanding of cultural institutions, and her enjoyment of outdoor activities had supported her environmental advocacy. Personal passions had become professional assets that enhanced her authenticity and effectiveness. As Eleanor prepared Catherine's schedule for the following day, she reflected on the remarkable transformation she had witnessed over the past year. The woman who had captured public attention as a university student had evolved into a figure of genuine influence and capability whose impact extended far beyond traditional royal responsibilities. Her combination of intelligence, empathy, and determination suggested that the monarchy would benefit from her continued service for decades to come. The future held challenges that would test Catherine's abilities and resolve, but Eleanor felt confident that the princess possessed the strength and wisdom necessary to meet whatever demands lay ahead. Her evolution from outsider to insider, from student to teacher, and from observer to leader had prepared her for the extraordinary responsibilities that would define the rest of her life. Thomas Anderson had been assigned as Prince George's protection officer and companion for 2 years, but 2026 had brought unique challenges as the young prince navigated his 13th year while adjusting to his grandfather's elevation to king and his father's new position as heir apparent. From Thomas's perspective, watching Prince George develop into his role while maintaining the innocence and curiosity of childhood required extraordinary skill from everyone involved in his care and education. The morning routine at Kensington Palace reflected the careful balance Prince William and Princess Catherine maintained between normal childhood experiences and preparation for extraordinary future responsibilities. Thomas observed George during these early hours, noting the natural leadership qualities that emerged in his interactions with his younger siblings and his genuine interest in the world around him. George's education had become a carefully orchestrated combination of traditional academic subjects and specialized training that would prepare him for his eventual role as king. Thomas witnessed his daily tutorials with constitutional experts, language instructors, and cultural advisors, all designed to provide comprehensive preparation while respecting his need for normal childhood development. The young prince approached these lessons with characteristic seriousness and impressive retention. The challenge of maintaining normalcy while acknowledging George's unique position required constant attention from his parents and support staff. Thomas observed the family's regular discussions about privilege and responsibility, where William and Catherine helped their eldest son understand both the opportunities and obligations that came with his birth. These conversations always emphasized service to others over personal advantage. George's natural intelligence and curiosity had impressed all his tutors and advisors. Thomas noticed the prince's particular interest in history, especially stories about previous monarchs and how they had navigated challenges during their reigns. His questions often revealed sophisticated thinking about leadership, justice, and the relationship between rulers and citizens that suggested wisdom beyond his years. The young prince's relationship with technology reflected his generation's natural comfort with digital communication while respecting royal protocols about privacy and security. Thomas supervised George's limited use of educational technology and observed his fascination with how modern communication systems worked. The prince had begun to understand how technology could be used to strengthen rather than undermine traditional institutions. Physical activities remained essential to George's development and provided opportunities for him to interact with peers outside royal circles. Thomas accompanied him to various sporting events and noted the prince's natural athleticism and competitive spirit. These activities also taught valuable lessons about teamwork, fair play, and handling both victory and defeat with grace. George's emerging personality combined qualities from both his parents with unique characteristics that were entirely his own. Thomas observed his father's analytical thinking and his mother's emotional intelligence, but also noted independent traits that suggested strong personal character. The prince demonstrated particular empathy toward others and genuine interest in understanding different perspectives. The relationship between George and his siblings provided important grounding in normal family dynamics despite their extraordinary circumstances. Thomas witnessed the typical sibling interactions of competition, cooperation, and affection that characterized any family with multiple children. George's natural protective instincts toward Charlotte and Louis suggested the caring leadership style that might characterize his eventual reign. Public appearances remained carefully limited to protect George's privacy while gradually introducing him to royal duties. Thomas accompanied him on these occasions and was struck by the prince's natural composure and genuine interest in the people he met. Unlike some children who might be overwhelmed by public attention, George seemed to understand the importance of these interactions and approach them with appropriate seriousness. The young prince's awareness of his future role had developed gradually through age-appropriate discussions and experiences. Thomas observed William and Catherine's careful introduction of constitutional concepts and historical precedents that would help George understand the monarchy's evolution and his place within it. These lessons always emphasized the temporary nature of individual reigns and the permanent importance of service to the nation. International awareness had become part of George's education through virtual meetings with children from Commonwealth countries and language lessons that would enable him to communicate with citizens from different cultures. Thomas witnessed his genuine interest in learning about other countries and his natural curiosity about how different societies organized themselves and solved common problems. Environmental consciousness had emerged as one of George's strongest personal interests, clearly influenced by his father's advocacy and his great-father's commitment to sustainability. Thomas observed the prince's enthusiasm for learning about renewable energy, conservation efforts, and climate science. His questions about environmental policy often challenged his tutors and revealed sophisticated understanding of complex issues. The prince's artistic interests reflected his mother's influence and suggested talents that could enhance his future royal role. Thomas witnessed George's developing skills in photography, drawing, and music, all pursued with the dedication and patience that characterized his approach to other subjects. These creative pursuits provided important balance to his more formal studies and royal preparation. George's understanding of social responsibility had been carefully nurtured through age-appropriate volunteer activities and educational visits to charitable organizations. Thomas accompanied him on these visits and was impressed by the prince's genuine interest in understanding how different groups helped people in need. His questions often focused on practical solutions rather than merely expressing sympathy. The challenge of protecting George's privacy while preparing him for eventual public life required constant vigilance from his security team and household staff. Thomas coordinated with media relations experts to ensure that the prince could have normal experiences while respecting public interest in his development. This balance had become increasingly delicate as George matured and his future role became more relevant to contemporary discussions about monarchy. Friendship remained one of the most complex aspects of George's life, as his position created natural barriers to normal peer relationships. Thomas observed William and Catherine's careful efforts to facilitate genuine friendships through shared activities and interests rather than formal introductions. The prince had developed several close relationships with children who seemed to appreciate him for his personal qualities rather than his royal status. Academic achievement had become increasingly important as George's education progressed toward more challenging subjects. Thomas witnessed his dedication to his studies and was impressed by his intellectual curiosity and analytical abilities. His teachers consistently reported exceptional performance across multiple subjects, suggesting academic talents that would serve him well in his future responsibilities. The influence of previous generations remained strong in George's development, with regular interactions with his grandfather King Charles providing important mentorship and historical perspective. Thomas observed these relationships and noted how each family member contributed different insights and values to the prince's education. The continuity of royal tradition combined with innovation for contemporary relevance created a rich learning environment. George's spiritual development had been carefully nurtured through regular participation in religious services and discussions about faith's role in leadership and service. Thomas witnessed the prince's thoughtful questions about religious concepts and his genuine interest in understanding how faith influenced historical figures and contemporary leaders. His spiritual education emphasized compassion, humility, and service to others. Cultural appreciation had become central to George's education as he learned to understand and respect the diversity within the United Kingdom and Commonwealth realms. Thomas accompanied him to various cultural events and educational visits that exposed him to different traditions, languages, and perspectives. The prince demonstrated remarkable ability to connect with people from all backgrounds and genuine interest in learning about their experiences. The development of George's public speaking abilities reflected his parents' understanding that communication skills would be essential to his future effectiveness. Thomas witnessed his practice sessions with speech coaches and was impressed by his natural confidence and developing ability to express complex ideas clearly. The prince seemed to understand instinctively that effective communication required authenticity rather than mere eloquence. Technology's role in modern monarchy had become part of George's education as he learned to understand both the opportunities and challenges created by digital communication. Thomas observed his carefully supervised exploration of social media platforms and his growing awareness of how technology could be used to strengthen connections between the monarchy and citizens while maintaining appropriate boundaries and security protocols. The prince's understanding of economic and social policy had begun to develop through age-appropriate discussions about inequality, opportunity, and the role of government in addressing social challenges. Thomas witnessed George's thoughtful questions about poverty, education, and healthcare that revealed his developing social conscience and genuine concern for others' welfare. Military history and tradition held particular fascination for George, who seemed to understand intuitively the importance of armed forces in national defense and international peacekeeping. Thomas accompanied him on educational visits to military installations and observed his respectful interactions with service members. The prince's questions often focused on strategy, leadership, and the moral dimensions of military service. George's relationship with the media required careful management to protect his privacy while acknowledging legitimate public interest in his development. Thomas worked closely with palace communications experts to ensure that media coverage remained appropriate and educational rather than intrusive or sensational. The prince had begun to understand the complex relationship between royalty and media that would characterize his entire life. Evening routines at Kensington Palace provided opportunities for normal family interactions that grounded George's development in love, security, and shared values. Thomas observed these intimate moments from a respectful distance and was struck by the genuine affection and mutual respect evident within the family. These relationships provided the emotional foundation that would support George through whatever challenges lay ahead. The transition from childhood to adolescence brought new challenges and opportunities for George's development. Thomas noticed the prince's growing awareness of his unique position and increasing sophistication in understanding complex social and political issues. His maturation process required constant adjustment of educational approaches and security protocols while maintaining the stability and support essential to healthy development. As Thomas prepared for another day of supporting George's education and protection, he reflected on the remarkable young man the prince was becoming. His combination of intelligence, empathy, and dedication suggested that the monarchy would eventually be led by someone uniquely prepared for the extraordinary demands of modern kingship. The careful balance of preparation and protection that characterized his upbringing seemed to be producing exactly the kind of leader that Britain would need in the decades to come. The future remained full of unknowns, but Thomas felt confident that George possessed the character and capabilities necessary to meet whatever challenges awaited him. His development from protected child to informed young citizen prepared for eventual leadership represented the best hopes for the monarchy's continued relevance and effectiveness in an evolving world. Sarah Mitchell had worked in various capacities within the royal household for 15 years, but her current role as coordinating secretary to the entire Wales family gave her a unique perspective on how the 4 generations of the royal family were preparing for an uncertain but promising future. As 2026 progressed, she witnessed daily the careful balance between honoring tradition and embracing necessary change that would define the monarchy's path forward. The morning briefings that brought together staff from different royal households had become essential coordination meetings where the practical aspects of modern monarchy were planned and implemented. Sarah observed representatives from King Charles's office, Prince William's staff, Catherine's team, and specialists responsible for the children's education and security as they worked together to ensure seamless coordination of family activities and public duties. The evolution of the royal family's public role had become increasingly sophisticated as they adapted to contemporary expectations while maintaining constitutional propriety. Sarah witnessed the careful planning behind every public appearance, where considerations included not only traditional protocol but also social media impact, environmental sustainability, and measurable outcomes related to the causes they supported. King Charles's influence on family operations remained strong, but Sarah noticed his growing confidence in delegating responsibilities to William and Catherine as they demonstrated their capabilities and judgment. The transition from Charles as sole decision-maker to a more collaborative family approach reflected the monarchy's adaptation to modern management principles while respecting hierarchical authority. The relationship between different generations within the family created both opportunities and challenges that required careful navigation. Sarah observed the regular family meetings where decisions about public appearances, media strategy, and long-term planning were discussed with input from all adult family members. These sessions revealed the genuine respect and affection that characterized family relationships despite occasional differences of opinion about strategy or priorities. William's emerging leadership style had begun to influence the entire household's approach to royal duties. Sarah witnessed his emphasis on measurable outcomes, strategic planning, and evidence-based decision-making that brought contemporary business practices to traditional royal operations. His analytical approach complemented rather than competed with his father's more intuitive leadership style, creating a comprehensive approach to royal management. Catherine's growing influence within the family extended beyond her specific areas of expertise to general advisory roles that affected all major decisions. Sarah observed her participation in discussions about everything from security protocols to charitable partnerships, where her insights about public sentiment and practical considerations often provided crucial perspective for effective planning. The children's development had become a central consideration in all family planning, with their education and well-being taking priority over other considerations when conflicts arose. Sarah witnessed the careful coordination required to ensure that Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis could maintain normal childhood experiences while gradually understanding their future roles and responsibilities. Technology continued to transform how the royal family conducted their duties and maintained relationships with citizens. Sarah observed the implementation of new digital communication strategies, virtual meeting technologies, and social media platforms that enabled more direct and immediate contact with the public while maintaining appropriate security and privacy protections. Environmental sustainability had become integrated into every aspect of royal operations, from transportation choices to event planning, catering decisions, and gift selections. Sarah witnessed the family's commitment to leading by example in addressing climate change while using their platform to promote sustainable practices throughout British society. International relationships remained crucial to the family's effectiveness, and Sarah observed their systematic approach to maintaining and strengthening connections with Commonwealth leaders, foreign dignitaries, and international organizations. The family's global perspective and generational diversity enabled them to connect with leaders from different backgrounds and age groups. The Commonwealth's future had become a particular focus of family planning, as younger leaders in member countries brought different expectations and perspectives to their relationships with the British monarchy. Sarah witnessed regular strategy sessions focused on maintaining Commonwealth unity while respecting the independence and autonomy of member nations. Mental health advocacy continued to unite all family members around shared commitments that reflected their generation's understanding of psychological and emotional well-being. Sarah observed their collaborative efforts to promote mental health awareness, reduce stigma, and improve access to treatment through their various platforms and partnerships. Education remained a central priority for the family, both in terms of their own continued learning and their advocacy for improved educational opportunities for all citizens. Sarah witnessed their regular consultations with educational experts, their support for innovative teaching methods, and their promotion of lifelong learning principles. The media landscape continued to evolve rapidly, creating both opportunities and challenges for royal communication strategies. Sarah observed the family's adaptation to new forms of media while maintaining traditional relationships with established outlets. Their approach emphasized authenticity and accessibility while protecting privacy and maintaining dignity. Public expectations of the royal family had continued to evolve as society changed and new generations of citizens developed different relationships with traditional institutions. Sarah witnessed the family's efforts to understand and respond to these changing expectations while remaining true to their core values and constitutional responsibilities. Economic considerations had become increasingly important in royal planning as the family sought to demonstrate value for public investment in the monarchy. Sarah observed their emphasis on measurable outcomes, cost-effective operations, and economic benefits generated through their activities, particularly in areas like tourism, international trade, and cultural promotion. The balance between public and private life remained one of the most challenging aspects of royal existence, requiring constant negotiation and adjustment as circumstances changed. Sarah witnessed the family's ongoing efforts to maintain personal relationships and individual well-being while fulfilling public duties and meeting legitimate expectations for access and transparency. Security concerns had evolved to address contemporary threats while enabling the family to maintain meaningful public contact and international travel. Sarah observed the sophisticated coordination between different security agencies and the integration of security considerations into all aspects of family planning and operations. Cultural change within British society required ongoing adaptation of royal approaches to remain relevant and effective. Sarah witnessed the family's efforts to understand and connect with diverse communities while respecting different traditions and perspectives. Their commitment to inclusivity and representation had become integral to their public role. The legal and constitutional framework surrounding the monarchy continued to evolve, requiring regular consultation with experts and careful consideration of precedents and implications. Sarah observed the family's collaboration with constitutional scholars, legal advisors, and political experts to ensure that their activities remained within appropriate bounds while maximizing their positive impact. Staff development had become a priority as the household sought to attract and retain talented individuals who could support the family's expanding activities and evolving needs. Sarah witnessed investments in training, technology, and professional development that enhanced the household's capabilities while maintaining the discretion and loyalty essential to royal service. Financial management reflected the family's commitment to responsible stewardship of both public funds and private resources. Sarah observed their careful oversight of expenditures, their emphasis on cost-effective operations, and their strategic investments in activities that generated long-term benefits for both the monarchy and the nation. The family's health and well-being received careful attention as they balanced demanding schedules with the need for rest, family time, and personal interests. Sarah witnessed their efforts to maintain fitness, manage stress, and protect their mental and emotional health despite the pressures of public life and constant scrutiny. Regional relationships throughout the United Kingdom remained crucial to the family's effectiveness and legitimacy. Sarah observed their systematic efforts to maintain connections with all parts of the country, understand regional concerns and priorities, and demonstrate their commitment to the entire United Kingdom rather than just London and the South East. Innovation in royal practices continued to characterize the family's approach as they sought new ways to fulfill traditional responsibilities while addressing contemporary challenges. Sarah witnessed their experimentation with different formats for public engagement, their adoption of new technologies, and their development of partnerships that enhanced their impact and effectiveness. The planning for future transitions had begun to influence current operations as the family prepared for eventual changes in leadership and responsibility. Sarah observed discussions about succession planning, constitutional preparations, and the gradual transfer of duties that would ensure continuity and stability during future transitions. Evening reflections often brought the family together for informal discussions about their shared experiences and mutual support. Sarah witnessed these private moments of connection that strengthened their relationships and reinforced their shared commitment to service, duty, and each other. As Sarah completed her daily coordination activities and prepared for another day of supporting the royal family's complex operations, she reflected on the remarkable adaptation and growth she had witnessed over the past year. The combination of tradition and innovation, continuity and change, individual personality and shared purpose that characterized the family's approach suggested that the monarchy was well positioned to meet whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. The future remained uncertain in many ways, but Sarah felt confident that the royal family's commitment to service, their willingness to adapt and learn, and their genuine care for each other and their citizens provided a strong foundation for continued success. The careful balance they maintained between honoring their heritage and embracing their future suggested that the institution of monarchy would continue to evolve and thrive in the decades to come. Their story was far from finished, but the direction of their journey seemed clear, toward a monarchy that remained faithful to its best traditions while embracing the changes necessary to serve effectively in an evolving world. The dedication, intelligence, and genuine humanity that Sarah observed daily convinced her that the British people were fortunate to be served by such a remarkable family, and that the future of the monarchy remained bright and full of promise.